Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner. Today for you guys I've got a Cardfight deck profile and it's going to be on the Granblue deck that I'm currently playing, marking this the first appearance of a standard deck on the channel and the first deck profile that I've done since, I believe, May. That was when I did the Harry deck. Yeah, so it's been a solid while since I did a profile on here. It's not that I didn't want to, it's just I didn't want to like waste your guys' time with something that I was just going to immediately replace anyway, as I did have an Oracle Think Tank profile planned a month and a half ago, but then Battle Sister Torque got released, and I didn't have the card yet, and I was like, I should probably wait until I get my hands on a Torque before I actually feature OTG on the channel, and spoiler alert, I do have this now. I don't have 3 though, but I'm just going to play the 2 Torque build, so an OTG profile will come at some point, but as far as for right now though, we're just going to talk about the clan that I've been playing for the last bit in standard format in the form of Granblue. As you guys know, I'm a longtime fan of the clan. I picked it up in G-Set 6 with the release of Night Rose in the revamped 7 Seas, and I've been more or less on the Granblue hype train since, as its playstyle is very reminiscent of some Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks that I've played in the past. Baskirk here is, for all intents and purposes, a Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, but adjusted for Vanguard, as he does the same thing as Red Med does, except instead of calling from the hand in addition to the graveyard, you get a guy that gets big and has an additional crit pressure. That being said though, this deck is in a very interesting spot at this time. We're in the, I want to say, the twilight of Extra Booster 2 format. Set 2 AL4 is coming up very soon, and with that set release, this deck is going to lose a lot of its stock. Right now, you could say it's in Tier 1 status, although I think it's probably on the lower end of Tier 1. You've got Oracle Think Tank, Kagero, Spike Brothers, and then you've got this in Dimension Police fighting it out. Although, admittedly speaking, Granblue has had no tournament success here in North America, to my knowledge. It's been pretty much Oracle Think Tank, Kagero, Random Deck, and surprisingly enough, Mega Colony's been also doing pretty decently here. So Granblue is just kind of hanging in there, but when set 2 drops, this is probably going to fall off, as I just see it having difficulty keeping up with the faster format that we're going to be getting with that release, plus the Shadow Paladin deck looks to be a rather troublesome matchup. People make the mistake of assuming that this deck is impervious to retire. It doesn't care about being wiped out, but I have to disagree with this. Granblue right now does not like getting its board wiped. Phantom Blaster Dragon will be a problem for this deck, as yes, you can rebuild your board after a wipe, but it takes a lot of resources to do that, and you just can't repeat that. And I do believe that Shadow Paladin is able to efficiently, consistently Phantom Blaster Dragon you to the point where you just can't keep a full board all the time, in addition to just coming at you with a big scary Vanguard attack. In addition to that, this deck also just has some other issues that people are flat out ignoring or refuse to even admit are present, that is ultimately holding it down from being the deck that people think it is, when it's actually not doing nearly as prominently. And the whole, it being having difficulties post AL4 release, if you look over at the OCG, aside from team tournaments, Granblue has been almost not appearing at all. Murakumo has more tops in this deck, and I do believe Granblue has had more people playing it in tournaments, or even less than that, truth be told. But yeah, the issues that I was mentioning earlier, some of the problems I've noticed while playing with this deck is that you need to see Baskirk, and if you do not see Baskirk, this deck just kind of falls apart, because your backup grade 3 rides are not good. A thing that this deck is often being compared to is Oracle Think Tank. And you look at Oracle Think Tank, you look at their other rides aside from Imperial Daughter, and you've got Amaterasu. And this deck doesn't really have an Amaterasu. Skull Dragon's an okay Vanguard, but if you're on it for more than a turn, you just feel really sad, as Baskirk allows you to build a board. He provides a rather decently sized Vanguard swings with crit pressure, and that's really kind of it. In addition to that, there's also Romario. If you can't proc Romario, it makes it a bit more difficult to get your deck rolling, because you're reliant on milling to set up a drop zone, but if you get too aggressive with the milling, you run the risk of milling out your Baskerks, not seeing them, and you feel really sad. So it kind of creates a bit of a conflict there, really, because you want to get 10 cards in drop zone, but you don't want to like be too reckless with it, otherwise you're just going to have bad times. And I've also noticed that this deck doesn't really build up a hand like that of other Protect clans like Mega Colony and Oracle Think Tank. You're converting you're building a field off your drop zone, which is nice, but standard format I feel is more important, is more reliant on how well you can keep your hand up because of how big attacks are. And on that note, I've noticed you also fall short of making really impressive numbers compared to that of Oracle Think Tank and Spike Brothers. So as a result, we just have a deck that falls short of being as good as some of the other decks in the format, and the best way to describe it is this is literally boneless Oracle Think Tank. Now, I apologize for taking 5 minutes into the video to do the deck profile, but I just wanted to be honest with you guys about my opinions of this deck and just what needed to be said. Like, before you come after me with your flaming keyboard fingers of fury in the comments below, just remember that, again, I love this clan. Like, I really adore Granblue. It's arguably my third favorite clan in this game, next to Neo Nectar and Narukami, but just because I like this deck doesn't mean I'm going to ignore its issues. Like, there are prominent issues here, and this deck needs a second wave of support and a good backup grade 3 in order to fix them. Cocytus and the next set, please. So, with that being said, let's finally get into this thing. So, for the starter, you're running your only choice, Guiding Zombie. This is my opportunity to actually talk about some of my experiences in playing Standard and just some of these new cards, and these starters are just so good. Like, you've heard it before, the extra draw helps, blah blah blah, but yeah, like, there have been games where I legitimately draw out of a brick hand because of the on-ride with this guy and their clones, and it makes these guys honestly make a good argument for being played in premium decks if your premium Forerunners are just not as good. Like, I don't know if I want to play Goat Rod in premium Narukami, assuming, of course, the Narukami doesn't bind. Like, I'm not sure if I want to play Goat Rod in the premium deck for Narus over our equivalent of this guy because of the extra draw support. Especially now that we're an XL clan and we build up no hand. Onto the 3s, 4 copies of Baskerk. This is your win con. You need to see this thing. If you don't ride it, you feel sad. He builds a board, he gets big. Like I already talked about earlier in the video, why this card is so integral to just your ability to play the game. Then for the other great 3s, 3 copies of Skull Dragon and 1 copy of Flonger. Skull Dragon is your best beat stick, and the games where I feel like you are in the driver's seat are the ones who are able to repeatedly just swing with these guys, as this is what makes up a good bulk of your offensive output. And then you've got Violet's Flonger, who is passable, but I would not be sad if I end up having to cut him at a later point, because, yeah, you can use him to shut off your opponent's Sentinels and potentially cheese out a win if you can get them to 5 damage. But that's the thing, if you can't get your opponent to 5 damage, it is really difficult to finish your opponent off with a Flonger, and you can't really be using this guy just because you can. Like, Flonger is a card where if you use it and you cannot win on that turn, you're probably going to die because you have to throw a good number of cards away to ensure that they can't block this thing. A 0, a 1, a 2. So that's 3 cards out of hand just to ensure the Flonger gets there. And if they're not at 5 damage, then it's really risky. And yet, Flonger, I feel, is also a card that you have to consider because it is what allows you to try and get the win against the Oracle Think Tank matchup, which that's a really iffy matchup. You can win if you can pressure them fast enough, but at the same time, though, that deck can just grind you out and kill you with Deer. And that's it for the 3s. For the great 2s, 4 copies of Ruined Shade. Ruined Shade helps you mill, and she can get reasonably sizable. The best things this thing can get is 17. If you're able to put a 12k booster behind it, then she does hit for a decent number. 4 copies of Night Mist. This honestly should have worked on Vanguard. I'm after thinking about it some more, him being restricted to only on Rigard Call, like, I would have gladly played a Counterblast and a Soul Blast for this guy to work on Ride in addition to on Call. And I think it would have just helped our early game a bit better. And then 4 copies of Commodore Blue Blood. As someone who has played with Shatra for a good while, I like cards like this that pressure your opponent to guard, otherwise you advance your game state. Yeah, but I can also see myself cutting him for something better like a King Serpent, although we're not getting him immediately. Instead, we're getting Samurai Spirit, and I know what I'm cutting for him. For the grade 1s, 4 copies of Romario. Resolving this guy makes you feel really good because he sets up your drop zone and he gets you any card out of the drop zone at that time. So a neat little thing you do is you can ride this guy, and then you can call this guy out, use his skill, sack him, mill 2, and then on the next turn when you ride on top of this guy, you get to do your thing. Although, given how Counterblast Denial is such a prominent thing in the format, there's also the thing where you have to be mindful of what kind of cards your opponent's playing. Like, if you're up against Dimension Police or Oracle Think Tank, and they see you ride this guy, they're going to ride a smaller Vanguard to deny you that Counterblast unless they flip the trigger, and you're going to feel sad. So just remember that's a thing. Like, truth be told, if you're in the mirror match and you see them ride the Romero first, I would ride this guy instead and deny them the Romero. You lose out on the Romero, but so do they. Anyway, 4 copies of Dancing Cutlass. It's your counter charge. It provides a body, and once we get our promo card, you can also sack it off to bring back Night Spirit. But yeah, these are your 4-ups. Then the other cards are just being played because you can, or rather because there's not much else to go with. Romero. Is this Romero? No, it's Norman. I keep getting this guy and Romero mixed up. So Norman the Ghosty. I just talked to him already. You sack him to mill 2 and buff something by 10. So it's rather neat to set up things such as Night Mist or Dandy Guy Romero. And then Evil Shade. This is honestly like the best of the other cards you can play. Like, I don't like Night Career. I just don't like the random mill 1. And the fact it's mandatory. Like, once you've milled up to 10 cards in drop zone, I really don't like milling out after that because you run the risk of milling off your triggers. At least I do, because RNG hates me like that. And Evil Shade is, it's just there. Like, it's useful for helping you build a board because the thing you can do if you've got the Counterblast for is you go Baskirk into Night Mist into Evil Shade, and Evil Shade calls you another attacker if you have an excess number of cards in drop zone. That being said, though, I have seen, again, the promo that Granblue got, which is Samurai Spirit, who can Soul Blast 1 and sack any unit you have other than himself to call it back from the graveyard, and it gets +4 until end of turn. I honestly like that. It's another, attacker and booster, so I'll probably cut these for Samurai Spirit if we ever get it over here. Unfortunately, it looks like it's the same type of promo as Battle Sister Tort, so it's going to be difficult to get a hold of, especially if you're like me and you live in Canada, which is apparently a third world country in the eyes of some distributors. And then that's it for the main deck. For the triggers, it's pretty straightforward. 8 crits, 4 heals, and 4 draws. Draw PGs are useful, although I do find myself pulling them off, as luck just hates me like that, so thank God that we have these Protect gifts. But that being said, yeah. Defensively, you have some issues. Offensively, there can also be problems. The Kagro matchup is really iffy. On one hand, you can handle the amount of Retire that they have, because Kagro, I don't believe, can nuke your board as much as Shadow Paladins can, actually. But Waterfall is a gigantic pain in the ass for any Protect clan, and unlike Oracle Think Tank, you will not have nearly as big of a hand in order to defend against them as you will with this deck. So those are my thoughts on this at the time. Again, please don't kill me in the comments below because I said that this deck was not as good as people think it is. I like it. This is probably my favorite deck that I'm playing in Standard right now. However, again, just to reiterate though, just because I like a deck doesn't mean I'm going to turn a blind eye to the very obvious issues that it has. So please keep that in mind when you decide to tell me off in the comments down below. As for what's next on the channel, as I kind of alluded to, I've got an Oracle Think Tank deck. It's more or less up to spec for now. I kind of want to get about a third Battle Sister Tort, but I feel like I can also just manage without it. And then after that, it's just deciding if I want to pick up Pale Moon or not when the new set drops. And then after that, we'll see. As far as a premium version of this deck goes, that one's going to be a really iffy one because we just don't really play premium around on my locals, so I don't really have a lot of motivation to build a premium deck, although I wouldn't mind experimenting with things like Columbard, bringing back this guy, and then going from there. I also need to pick up a Megiddo for this, but in any case, that's all for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Boost39, jacking out.